Could you forgive someone who lied about their identity in order to protect you? Isabella's heart pounded as the echoes of her condescending boss's dismissal reverberated through the sleek glass office. The cold city light filtered bleakly through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting sharp angular shadows over her shaken figure. Her voice was silenced, swallowed by the sterile murmurs of suited coworkers pretending not to watch. She stared at the polished mahogany desk where her innovative designs lay, discarded blueprints of dreams threaded with her sweat and hope, now reduced to mere lines and faded colors in the eyes of her superiors. Her green eyes, usually fierce with determination, shimmered with the sting of humiliation, the slow drip of self-doubt creeping into her chest like ice water. Isabella, the boss's voice held that cold, calculating tone between dismissal and disdain. Your ideas don't align with the firm's vision. Stick to the standard. Innovate only when you're sure. She bit back a tremor, resolute yet pierced with the quiet ache of eroding confidence. The sterile silence around her was a canvas painted with whispers and sideways glances, an invisible barrier boxing her in. Her fingers clenched into fists at her sides, nails digging into her palms. The soft hum of the computers, the faint clatter of keyboards worlds away from the pounding of her fractured dreams. She glanced around, the polished neutral walls suddenly suffocating, the fluorescent bulbs casting a harsh, desaturated glow that flattened colors and muffled possibilities. The black and white suits around her blurred into faceless phantoms of judgment. Thank you, Isabella, the boss sneered, voice frosty. Your enthusiasm is appreciated. But enthusiasm doesn't pay the bills. Her green eyes flickered, then hardened, a storm gathering behind the facade of grace. Yet no words cannot now. She was left standing amid the hollow applause of unseen forces conspiring against her. The door snapped shut briskly behind her, a finality echoed in the hollow click that froze her heartbeat. Isabella's breath hitched as a cold shiver traced her spine. The city's pulse invading the space outside the office, car horns, distant sirens, steps fading into the night-filled alien, a rhythm she no longer matched. She closed her eyes for a moment, frustration and shame melting into the ache of invisibility. The weight of rejection settled like a stone in her chest. Opening her eyes, she caught her reflection in the darkened mirror wall, the sleek curves of her silhouette betrayed by the hollow vulnerability flickering in the glass. Her dark hair, loose around her shoulders, framed a face both beautiful and battle-weary. She touched the glass lightly, as if to reach the part of her that could still dream. Outside, the sun dipped below the jagged skyline with a muted orange glow, casting the city in final twilight, a balance of light and shadow. A sudden gust shook the cathedral of skyscrapers, and a solitary red rose petal drifted past the window's edge. It twirled languidly, a symbol of love and danger, before vanishing into the encroaching dusk. Isabella's gaze followed the petal, a silent invitation, a spark igniting in the gathering twilight. The room's harsh light slowly faded into soft darkness. Her reflection remained a woman poised between despair and the promise of transformation. Night had folded over the city, a weight pressing down in the cool air lit sporadically by the meager glow of street lamps and the restless neon flicker of distant signs. Isabella moved through shadowed streets, the echoes of the day's humiliation still simmering beneath her skin, attention coiled tightly beneath her measured steps. Her long dark hair clung to her face, damp with the humid city night, and her piercing green eyes were lost somewhere between anger and fragile doubt. The towering silhouettes of skyscrapers loomed overhead, sharp edges cutting through the fog like silent sentinels watching over a world teetering between glamour and menace. She pulled her coat tighter, a shield against the creeping chill and the vivid memories of all the dismissals, the condescension, and the razor-thin encounter where her dreams had been dismissed with a careless wave. Her breath came slow but uneven, clouding before her like wisps of smoke dissolving into the cold void. The low murmur of distant traffic mixed with intermittent footsteps on wet pavement, each sound a reminder of the city's unyielding pulse, indifferent to the turmoil in one woman's heart. Isabella's mind cycled through the moments of the day, harsh words that cut deeper than any blade, the flickering doubt mounting with every sideways glance and derisive murmuring from the boardroom's edge. A flush of anger rose, hot and sharp, yet beneath it roiled a sea of suppressed vulnerability, a terror of exposure, of becoming nothing more than a pawn in the power plays that whispered beneath the city's glimmering facade. She passed into an alleyway, dark and narrow, a place where secrets gathered like shadows and the air grew thick with menace. The glow from a flickering neon sign above a nearby bar painted her face in surreal reds and blues, colors both vivid and fractured, mirroring the duality clawing within her. Her footsteps slowed, muscles tense and vigilant. The weight of the city's dangers pressed close, and yet an inexplicable draw pulled her forward toward the unknown, towards a fate entwined with danger and desire. A sudden breeze stirred a cluster of red rose petals littering the ground, their vivid color stark against the damp concrete. Isabella's gaze followed the dance of the petals as one settled at her feet, a crimson whisper against the gray night. A flicker of curiosity sparked beneath the swirl of doubt, an uneasy and unspoken promise, threaded with peril. She stooped, fingertips grazing the delicate rose, a symbol heavy with meanings, love and warning merged in its deep crimson depth. The city around her seemed to hold its breath, the shadows pressing in, the night thickening with possibility. Isabella straightened, the rose clasped briefly between her fingers before she tucked it into the pocket of her coat, heart a staccato rhythm breaking the silence. The camera lingered, high-contrast light slicing through fog, the interplay of shadows and the symbol of the rose painting a tension thick with uncertainty and fragile hope. With a slow, deliberate step, she disappeared deeper into the city's labyrinth, a woman poised on the precipice of change, her journey only just beginning as the night folded around her like a velvet shroud. The alley exhaled, shadows folded into silence, the glint of neon signs pooling against the grimy brick like distant stars barely piercing a darkening sky. Isabella's breath came ragged and sharp against the cold, the sting of the night biting into the fabric of her neutral-toned coat. Her emerald eyes darted desperate, scanning the dimness that concealed lurking dangers. The echo of footsteps pressed quick behind her, a relentless cadence that sank deep into her bones. Her heartbeat pounded a frantic tempo, a wild drum in sync with the hard scrape of high heels on cracked pavement. No safe corners, no promise of rescue, only the frightening brush of imminent menace. A dark figure slithered into view, the glint of metal catching faint streetlight, a weapon moving like a shadow's cruel whisper. Isabella twisted sharply, her body a tense arc of refusal and fight, but fear's sharp claws were quick to seize. The alley's cold breath closed in with suffocating finality, despair tethering her like the weight of chains. Then a sharp, decisive interruption, a presence broken loose from the darkness, swift as a breath. A masked figure emerged, fluid and implacable, a guardian wrapped in enigma. Movement blurred, a flash of deft hands, the muffled thud of a body falling, a whispered command. Isabella stumbled back, heart pounding, the grenade of adrenaline detonating within her veins. She looked down at her feet. A single red rose lay cradled in the grime, petals stained with the city's grit but vibrant as a secret flame. Her reflection shimmered from a cracked shop window opposite, the interplay of fractured glass and surrounding darkness echoing the duality within a woman torn between the urge to disappear and the burn of resilient desire to stand. The masked savior's eyes caught hers across the alleyway, an unspoken promise, a riddle veiled in the folds of secret worlds. Then, as silently as he had come, he vanished into the labyrinth of the city's veins. The rose lingered still, a pulse of crimson against the gray city, a fierce symbol of love entwined with danger. Isabella stood alone, breath heaving in the chill air, the cold concrete grounding her turmoil. Somewhere deep in the maze of her soul, a spark caught a flicker of awakening amidst the shadows. The night held its breath, the city quiet but alive, as if waiting for the next step of a tale just begun. The camera held on Isabella's face, piercing green eyes alight with pain and promise, a woman poised on the razor's edge of fate. In that suspended moment, the rose on the pavement became more than a fallen petal, it was a beacon in the darkness, beckoning Isabella toward a destiny writ in blood and fire. The scene faded into the muted music of the restless city, a heartbeat quickened, the promise of a story unfolding beneath the neon glow. The city's relentless pulse throbbed through the night air as Isabella sat alone in a dimly lit apartment, the haze of streetlights casting muted shadows across her face. The muted hum of traffic seeped through cracked windows, blurring the boundaries between isolation and the world beyond. Before her, a scattered array of photographs, newspaper clippings, and cryptic notes littered the dark wood tablia, a fragmented map of the man who had saved her, the mystery wrapped in danger and seduction. Her fingers traced the outline of a faded photograph, a gathering shrouded in smoke and whispers, faces shadowed but woven into the fabric of the mafia underworld she'd only glimpsed in passing. The masked man who had appeared from nowhere, leaving a red rose by her feet, a dark emblem of intertwined love and peril, had become an obsession she couldn't quell. Outside, rain began to patter against the glass, the rhythm insistent and relentless, echoing the turmoil rising in her chest. She swallowed hard, the bite of uncertainty prickling at the edges of her resolve. This was more than a savior. It was a nexus of secrets, danger, and forbidden desire that beckoned with both promise and peril. She reached for a notebook, fingers trembling slightly, and began to jot down every detail, recalled the way his eyes glimmered behind the mask, the subtle scent of cologne and danger, the unspoken word hanging between salvation and shadow. Yet excitement warred with dread. Each new lead uncovered in whispered conversations and clandestine networks peeled back layers of a world that could consume her. She felt the fragile threads of her independence strain under the weight of secrets not hers to bear. The knowledge tangled with growing feelings, an intoxicating mix of fear and intrigue that blurred the boundaries between ally and captor, protector and threat. The slow dance of time seemed to accelerate as if the city itself conspired to push her further into unknown depths. In the distance, a siren wailed, slicing through the night, and the wind shifted, rattling the windowpanes with the portent of coming storms. Isabella's eyes flickered to the fallen red rose, now pressed between the pages of her journal, a symbol both of vulnerability and fierce defiance. Her breath caught, heart racing not only with the danger but the dawning realization that she had begun to step beyond the shadows of her fears. "What am I becoming?" she whispered to the night, voice barely audible, a thread of courage lacing the question. A distant thunder rolled, as if echoing her inner storm. The path she had unknowingly embarked upon stretched wide before her, unmapped, fraught, yet undeniably hers to navigate. The camera held tight on her face, a flicker of determination breaking through the vulnerability as the rain intensified, washing away the remnants of her innocence and heralding the ascent into a dangerous, beautiful reckoning. The scene faded softly, the muted orchestral swell entwining with the city's restless heart. Beata promised that the battle for love and self could only deepen. The cold night air pressed relentlessly against Isabella's skin as she walked the fog-laden streets, threading between sleek skyscrapers and shadowed alleyways. The city's heartbeat throbbed with danger and desire, a tension undercurrents of power struggling to break free. Her emerald eyes, sharp and searching, scanned faces concealed in the dwindling mist, each moment refracted in a mirror of suspicion and hope. The mysterious masked man had overwhelmed her world, a pattern of shadow and light, his intentions veiled beneath layers of secrets. With every step into the mafia's maze, Isabella felt herself unravel and recompose, caught between yearning for connection and the clutching fear of entrapment. In a smoke-filled room under the city's underbelly, she sat across from her confidant and best friend, Amelia, whose gaze flickered with a mix of concern and strategy. Soft, low murmurs surrounded them, the ticking clock of impending decisions and veiled threats. "You're playing with fire, Izzy," Amelia warned, voice a cautious whisper amidst the swirling smoke. "This world, it's not just danger, it's a cage. And Vincenzo's always watching." Isabella met her friend's eyes, defiance tempered by lingering doubt. "I can't ignore who saved me. I need answers, Amelia. And maybe, something more. Outside, rain began to fall gentle at first, then heavy-era rhythmic percussion on metal and stone, filling the gaps between uncertain words. The days that followed were a volatile mix of silent surveillance and whispered revelations. Isabella's nights tangled with encrypted phone calls and shadowy meetings in dim-lit cafes, the weight of betrayal and loyalty balancing precariously on each step. Vincenzo's looming presence was a constant storm, a rival simmering hunger to claim her body and Sula's a pawn between kings. A photograph discovered in the lower floor of an opulent villa froze Isabella's breath. The enigmatic masked man was there, caught in frozen light at a clandestine mafia gathering. The image teased a riddle woven in danger and desire, unveiling truths that threatened to unravel the fragile trust she had begun to build. Behind closed doors, every whispered conversation bore the weight of veiled threats and calculated alliances. Underneath the city's glimmering surface, deception pulsed relentlessly, fracturing bonds and bearing down on Isabella's heart with the cold precision of a blade. In a moment stolen from chaos, under the watchful glow of street lamps drowned in rain, Isabella's voice trembled as she confided, "Am I strong enough to fight for this, or is surrender inevitable?" Emilia's eyes bore the silent answer, resilience demanded sacrifice, but surrender was defeat. A sudden interruption shattered the fragile stillness. A sharp knock at the door, a figure lurking in the shadows, the night pressing heavier as secrets threatened to bleed into daylight. Isabella stood poised at the precipice of revelation and ruin. Her journey through love and danger only just unfolding, a complex dance of trust and betrayal spiraling toward an uncertain fate. The camera held on her steady, luminous eyes as the scene faded to black, heartbeat mingling with the city's relentless pulsation, unresolved symphony of risk, desire, and the fragile hope that love might yet conquer all. The city's pulse quickened with an uneasy rhythm, mirroring the storm brewing within Isabella's chest. Inside a dimly lit, smoke-cloaked room beneath the glittering facades of skyscrapers, she stared at the photograph laid bare on the velvet of the tablethe masked man caught in a web of shadows, his presence commanding and inscrutable among the international mafia elite. Her fingers trembled, tracing the contours of faces unseen yet hauntingly familiar. The image shattered illusions, cold truths slicing through the fragile shell of trust she had wrapped around her heart. The savior had become an enigma, a figure cloaked in danger and deceit. Memories collided. His swift intervention in the alley, the red rose fallen at her feet like a token of impending fate, the glint of steel and promises whispered in silence. The fragile thread that bound her to him tightened painfully, betraying a tumult of emotions tangled with betrayals yet to be revealed. The room's thick air pressed heavy, heavy with smoke, secrets, and a palpable tension as whispered voices outside spoke of alliances forged and broken, of power dances where hearts were pawns. Isabella's breath caught as she realized the true magnitude of her choice, a precipice where love was both refuge and risk, and the line between devotion and destruction blurred. A sudden sharp knock fractured the moment. Vincenzo Carrera's name lingered in her mind like a poison-laced promise. Rival, tempter, threatened the cruel architect of the web she now found herself entangled within. She bowed her head, the weight of dual identities as architect and pawn, survivor and lover crashing around her. The mirror before her fractured reflections, a woman poised between the deadly allure of forbidden love and the perilous path it carved. Her voice, hushed but resolute, cut through the uncertainty. "Who am I to trust?" The city's restless hum outside crescendoed into a cacophony of sirens and whispered peril, every shadow a bearer of secrets, every alley a crossroads of fate. Isabella folded the photograph carefully, slipping it beneath the red rose pressed in her journal, a symbol now more poignant than ever, merging the blood of love and danger. She stood, her silhouette framed by the waning moonlight bleeding through Venetian blinds, a woman transformed yet fettered, ready to fight for her truth even as the city's underbelly threatened to consume her. The camera held on her piercing gaze, fierce and fractured, as the scene darkened, a prelude to unraveling destinies, betrayals, and the dangerous embrace of love's shadow. The screen faded into silence, the red rose glowing faintly against the night, a symbol of all that was lost and the perilous hope still burning within. The apartment was suffocated by silence, thick and oppressive as rain lashed the windows with unforgiving force. Outside, the city blurred under the cold, relentless downpour, a twisting tapestry of neon haze reflecting pain and loss. Isabella sat crumpled against the peeling paint of the corner wall, her sharp green eyes vacant yet burning with the embers of shattered hope. Her secret world, once bordered by dreams and determined steps, was unraveling, thread by fragile thread. The weight of betrayal pressed crushingly upon her chest, not merely from enemies lurking in shadowed circles, but from those she once called friends. The day's revelation had struck like a blade, twisting between ribs, exposing raw wounds deep beneath carefully sculpted defenses. Her phone sat silent on the cracked hardwood floor, a mute witness to fractured alliances and fractured trust. The fallout from her allegiance with the mafia had cost her everything: her job, her dignity, her closest friendships. Amelia, once her confidant, had turned, her betrayal a sting sharper than any blade, protecting her own interests at Isabella's expense. The room's dim, flickering light caught the red rose tucked loosely between the pages of her spiral-bound notebook, the symbol that had once fluttered unexpectedly at her feet, now a sign of danger intertwined with desire. Its scarlet hue was a cruel reminder of love's precarious dance with peril. Isabella's breath came shallow as shadows crept closer, the walls seeming to close in with every exhaled thought. The apartment's high ceilings offered no reprieve. Instead, they mirrored the distance now yawning between her and a life she thought she might claim. A mirror across the room fractured her reflection, her dual selves staring back, the hopeful architect, and the woman caught in webs far darker and more tangled than blueprints or boardrooms. The fragmented image fragmented the soul. Her fingers trembled as she reached for a photograph, a secret stolen moment of her mysterious savior, unmasked in a garden of whispers and danger. The image wavered in her grip as uncertainty and dread gnawed at the lingering hope she clung to. Outside, thunder rumbled low, the distant threat echoing the storm raging within her. The relentless rain began to fade, replaced by an eerie stillness like a brief, suffocating breath held by the city itself. Whispers of betrayal and loss circled in the dimness, hollow words hanging suspended between despair and defiance. Isabella's voice broke softly, barely audible over the muted patter of fading storm. "What have I become?" The camera closed in on her fractured Gazia woman on the precipice, teetering between surrender and the fierce fight for her fragmented identity. The desaturated light poured in cold streams through half-closed blinds, casting long shadows that swallowed the room in looming silence. Time seemed to fracture, moments bleeding slowly into the night's consuming embrace. The red rose remained a beacon of blood and hopi petals trembling in the stale air. The scene drew out its final breath in a pause, a suspended heartbeat where past dreams and perilous futures entwined, a haunting silhouette framed by fractured light and shadow, the labyrinth of love and danger tightening inexplicably around her soul. Isabella sat alone in the darkness of her apartment, walls swallowing the faint light from the street lamps as a relentless chill seeped into her bones. The city's muted roar faded into an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant hum of a late-night siren, a thin pulse in the suffocating stillness. The room, stripped of warmth and life, felt like a cage, enclosing her and the ghosts of choices that now loomed impossibly large. Her reflection flickered ghost-like in the fractured mirror mounted on the wall, each fragmented shard a shard of her fractured identity. The woman staring back was familiar yet distant, eyes haunted and hollow, lips pressed tight in unyielding grief. Somewhere deep inside, the fierce hope that once burned had been smothered beneath the weight of betrayal, loss, and the crushing fears that shadowed every breath. The air was heavy, laden with the scent of rain from the night's recent storm that had passed, leaving a damp chill that crept slowly through the cracked window frames. Outside, puddles mirrored the fractured cityscape, a kaleidoscope of neon hues distorted and broken, a reflection of her own shattered world. She clutched a small object tightly in her hand, the red rose from the masked savior, its petals slowly wilting but still clinging to a stubborn fragility. Each delicate fold embodied the paradox of her existence: beauty stained by danger, love woven tightly with risk. An agonizing silence stretched interminable, filled with the ghosts of whispered promises and broken trust. Memories flooded the cryptic smile of the masked man, the sudden betrayal of a friend who had become an enemy, the cold realization that her world was no longer what she thought, and the looming shadow of Vincenzo's none too distant threat. Isabella's voice was a mere breath, fragile and resigned. "What have I become?" The mirror echoed back her hollow question, a silent witness to the woman's slow unraveling. Around her, the darkness thickened, swallowing the edges of the room until all that remained was the solitary, wilting rose, its red deepened into an almost blackened shadow. The clock's ticking seemed distant and distorted, dragging time into an agonizing stretch. The city, with its relentless pace and ruthless players, felt impossibly vast and indifferent, as if she were a small, fading silhouette lost among a sea of shadows. She curled inward, retreating into herself as the images of betrayal and love mingled into an unbearable weight. The room echoed with her silence, the unspoken fears and mourning crushing every flicker of hope beneath the inexorable tide of despair. Outside, the hum of the city dimmed further, night deepening into an eternal dusk as Isabella, woman fragmented and worn, surrendered to the stillness, poised on the edge of surrender. The scene closed in a suffocating darkness broken only by a single, trembling tear tracing a path down her cheek, the quiet beating of a heart slowly yielding to the engulfing void. Isabella sat alone in the dim light of her apartment, the oppressive silence broken only by the faint hum of city life filtering through closed windows. The shadows danced on the walls, twisting into shapes that echoed the turmoil within her. Her hands, delicate yet trembling, rested on her lap, clutching the faded red rose that had become a symbol of the dangerous love entangling her fate. The rose's once vibrant petals were now wilting, curling inward like the fragile hope inside her heart. She held it up to her gaze, green eyes reflecting both the beauty and peril. It represented a poignant reminder of the masked man who had saved her, leaving that singular crimson promise at her feet under the veil of night. As exhaustion weighed heavily upon her, memories flickered: the sudden danger in the alleyway, the blurred face of her protector, the complicated web of desire and deception binding her to shadows she barely understood. Each recollection brought a sharp pang, the delicacy of affection intertwined with the jagged edges of betrayal. Her breath caught softly as a distant echo stirred a single fragile Notia message, a whisper of life amid the desolation. The sharp trill of a phone nearby broke through the stillness, startling her. Fingers trembling, she reached out, answering the call with a tentative strength. A voice, familiar yet concealed, filtered through the static, a hesitant invitation, a hint of allegiance from an unexpected ally within the dangerous world she'd unwillingly embraced. The words were few but potent, kindling a spark where only bleakness had reigned. Isabella's eyes glistened with unshed tears as the connection ended, leaving a heartbeat of uncertainty and a trembling glimmer of hope. The room seemed to breathe with newfound light, the red rose resting gently in her palm, petals faintly illuminated by the soft moonlight streaming through the window. With a slow, deliberate motion, she placed the rose by the cracked mirror that had witnessed her fragmented identity, its reflection now a symbol of duality, despair shadowed by the faintest glow of renewal. Her voice was a whisper, almost lost in the night air: "Maybe this is just the beginning." The camera pulled back, framing Isabella silhouetted against the midnight skyline, the complexity of love and danger swirling around her like the city's restless heartbeat. The final frame held her poised between shadow and light, a woman on the cusp of transformation, as the soft ticking of the watch echoed the fragile rhythm of a heart daring to hope once more. The morning sun filtered through remnants of fog, casting a soft amber glow over the secluded alleyway where Isabella stood, her breath shallow and silent. The cool air clung to her skin, each inhalation sharp as she steadied herself amid the chaos of upheaval. The shadows of her recent betrayals and lost illusions still haunted her, but beneath the surface, something new was beginning to stir, a fragile flicker of hope breaking through the overwhelming despair. The dark alley was a corridor of solitude, yet it shimmered faintly with the promise of justice and renewal. A mirror leaned against the damp brick wall, an unspoken symbol of duality and catalysts for self-reflection. As she gazed into the cracked glass, her own reflection fractured and fragmented, mirroring her shattered trust and the divided heart she carried. Her eyes, piercing green and mirroring the tumult within, lingered on her own visage, seeking remnants of strength amid the ruins of betrayal. Every line and shadow reminded her of sacrifices made, secrets kept, and the perilous dance between love and danger she'd been forced to navigate. A soft, almost imperceptible whisper broke the silence, a distant memory of her own voice, whispering to herself, I am more than this chaos. I will find my way. It was an acknowledgement of her wounded yet unbroken spirit, a seed buried deep within her core, waiting to sprout. She reached into her coat, meticulously neutral-toned garment that felt both armor and barrier, and retrieved a small, battered photograph. Her fingers trembled as she touched the image of the masked savior. The man who had appeared from the shadows, leaving her with the red rose, had become more than just a protector. He symbolized her awakening. Inhaling the cool dawn, Isabella closed her eyes momentarily, anchoring herself in the present. The city's distant hum was a faint cadence, a reminder that life pulsed on, indifferent yet offering a quiet space for her to heal. The darkness around her was thick, but the faint glow of dawn hinted at new possibilities, soft, barely perceptible, yet undeniable. A crackling gust of wind stirred the alley's shadows, lifting a single leaf like a delicate promise fluttering into the quiet sky. It drifted slowly down, an ephemeral token of change, reminding her that even amidst chaos, renewal could take root. Her hand clenched the photograph tightly, her grip steadying with renewed determination. The scene held on her silhouette, vulnerable yet resilient, battered but unbuoyed, as the first light of dawn spilled fully across the alley, illuminating the path ahead. The camera pulled back, capturing this fragile moment of transformation, a testament that hope, however faint, can emerge from the depths of despair. The dawn's gentle glow lingered, promising that even in shadowed spaces, light could find its way. Sunlight fractured through the canopy of ancient trees, casting shifting golden patterns onto the forest floor, a stark contrast to the shadows that had swallowed Isabella's world just days prior. She moved with deliberate purpose, each step heavy with resolve, through the quiet woods that had become her sanctuary of rebirth. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt, now burned with quiet strength, piercing the surrounding darkness as if banishing old fears. Clad in a neutral-toned coat that reflected her understated grace, she paused before a weathered stone, etched with symbols neither her nor her enemies understood. Her fingers brushed the carvings, feeling the cold rebellion of history, and then shook with newfound clarity. This place, this symbol, was her ancestral inheritance, wounds and victories engraved into its surface. The symbol called her to pieces long hidden, to truths that perhaps could be reshaped. A gust of wind swept fallen leaves in a swirling dance, as if nature itself acknowledged her shift. She raised her head, her piercing green eyes catching the light, resolute, unyielding. With a quiet breath, she extended her hand, gently unfolding a crumpled piece of paper she had carried for days, an original letter exposing Vincenzo's treachery, a man who had built his power on lies and manipulation. The weight of history pressed into her palm as she remembered her vow to confront, to protect, to seek justice. Her lips trembled in a soft, almost inaudible whisper, "This ends here." Her steps quickened, moving into the heart of her ancestral estate, once a place of shame, now a ground of silent retribution. Shadows receded as dawn's first light pierced the canopy, heralding a new foundation of hope. Her plan was set, her resolve sealed. In a clearing bathed in dawn's glow, she took a moment to stand before the stone, the symbols intertwined with her destiny, an unspoken vow to reclaim her life, her love, and her future. The wind carried a whisper of awakening, and the forest, her sacred witness, stood bathed in golden promise. Her gaze lingered on the horizon, a last breath of doubt fading into the air. A surge of calm filled her, unearthing the strength she'd buried beneath layers of fear. The shadows of her past dissolved into the brightening light of possibility. The scene held her silhouette against the awakening dawn, poised to forge her path anew. The symbols on the stone shimmered faintly, a silent blessing for the journey ahead, promising that even in darkness, hope's ember endured. The dawn broke slowly over the city skyline, a testament to the new day, yet in the shadowed depths of the mansion's grand hall, the atmosphere was thick with resolute calm. Isabella stood by the window, the faint light casting her silhouette in sharp relief, her expression a calm fortress built on the tumult of her recent struggles. Gone was the hesitancy that once haunted her gaze, replaced by a fierce clarity, a resolve forged in the fires of betrayal and heartbreak. Behind her, Vincenzo's empire crumbled, his plots exposed, his influence shattered like brittle glass falling from the heights of power. The whispers of his downfall lingered like echoes in the empty halls, but Isabella felt the true victory rising within her, a moral and emotional rebirth that purified her from months of peril. She closed her eyes momentarily, adjusting her neutral-toned blazer, each movement deliberate, almost ceremonial. The red rose, once a symbol of peril and forbidden love, now sat in her hand, its petals vibrant and unblemished, a harbinger of hope and renewal. She lifted it slowly, holding it to her heart, shoulders squared with the weight of her purpose. Turning, her lips curled into a smile, nothing showy, but one filled with unshakable conviction. "It ends here," she whispered, voice steady and unwavering, a vow etched into the air. "No more shadows. No more masks. Only truth." The camera captured her stance, strong, serene against the dawn's golden glow spilling through the grand windows. Light fractured into shards of hope, illuminating her face with a new radiance, a reflection not just of victory over darkness but of a spirit reborn, unbreakable and free. Each step she took was measured, purposeful toward the doors that led to her destiny, to the city she vowed to reclaim without fear. The clenched fist holding the rose was a symbol of her strength, a silent testament to love's enduring power in the face of peril. The scene paused at the threshold, her silhouette framed against the rising sun, an emblem of resilience, justice, and the promise of a future written by her own hand. The shadows retreated, dissolving into the promise of dawn, a moment suspended in time before the storm truly passed, heralding her final rebirth. Dawn's first light spilled over the city skyline, casting a warm, golden hue that softened the jagged edges of skyscrapers and illuminated the quiet streets. Isabella stood atop the rooftop, her figure silhouetted against the awakening sky, a gentle breeze stirring her dark hair as she gazed into the horizon. Her green eyes, once filled with doubt and fear, now reflected a quiet serenity, a resolve forged in the crucible of peril and surrender. The red rose she held was delicate but steady, its petals whispering promises of love and resilience. She traced its velvet surface with a gentle finger, feeling the faint pulse of life still lingering within, symbolic of her own rebirth. Her shoulders relaxed, the tension of months unraveling, giving way to a peaceful acceptance. Slowly, she closed her eyes, allowing the sun's soft warmth to seep into her skin, her mind drifting through memories, moments of betrayal, heartbreak, and the hard-won victories that had shaped her. Each scent, each sound, felt imbued with new meaning. The distant hum of the city below, the rustling of leaves carried by the wind, and the quiet heartbeat of her own resilience blossoming anew. Her grip on the rose tightened briefly, an unspoken vow etched into her quiet smile. Love and danger had intertwined her fate, but she had emerged stronger, more aware of her own worth beneath the layers of fear and vulnerability. The camera pulled back in a wide shot, capturing her serene figure against a canvas of dawn, a symbol of hope ascending from the shadows. The city stirred beneath her, but here she was, at the edge of her past and future, a testament to the enduring power of love, courage, and redemption. As the first light kissed her face, she opened her eyes filled with quiet resolve. The world was still awakening, but she had already begun to heal, her spirit finally embracing the delicate beauty of a new beginning, poised to step forward into the promise of daylight. The first light of dawn poured softly over the city, painting the skyline in hues of gentle gold and pink. Isabella stood on the edge of the skyscraper's rooftop, the expansive view stretching endlessly before her. The wind brushed her dark hair, now tinged with silver, as she gently clasped the red rose in her hand, a symbol of love, peril, and forever intertwined destinies. Her eyes, still piercing and vibrant, reflected the calm after the storm, a mirror of her inner transformation. She took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the cool air fill her lungs and settle on her skin like a mantle of renewal. The city below stirred quietly, oblivious to her silent vigil, yet she knew she was no longer just a spectator in her own life. Memories flooded the betrayals, the dangers, the love that teetered on the knife's edge, yet nowhere heart held a different truth. Forgiveness. Acceptance. The tumultuous journey to this moment had shown her the fragile beauty of vulnerability and the strength in surrendering fear. The wind carried faint whispers of her past, the shadows receding into the early morning light. Every scar on her soul had become a testament not of weakness, but of resilience. The red rose pressed gently against her palm whispered its silent promise of hope, of overcoming. She turned slightly, her gaze lingering on the horizon as warmth kindled within her, an ember reignited by acceptance and peace. Her lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. The love she fought for, the danger she dared to face, these were no longer enemies but parts of her intricate, beautiful mosaic. With a calm resolve, Isabella lifted the rose slowly to her nose, inhaling its faint, intoxicating scent, the sweet and bitter scent of love tested and forged anew. The city, the shadows, the memories all faded into the background, leaving only her powerful, peaceful, ready. The camera pulled back in a slow, sweeping shot, capturing her silhouette against the awakening dawn, a symbol of quiet victory, of love's resilience against the odds, of a woman who had faced the abyss and emerged reborn. As the light grew stronger, illuminating the future she would shape with courage and grace, a serene silence lingered, a pause in time, a testament that love and hope could indeed triumph over danger and darkness. As dawn's pale light seeped through the glass of the skyscraper's highest floor, Isabella stood alone, the city stretching endlessly beneath her, a silent testament to her transformation. The air was crisp, carrying the faint aroma of distant rain and awakening streets, yet within her, there was a profound stillness. The crisp fabric of her neutral-toned dress clung gently to her, a symbol of understated resilience and newfound serenity. In her hand, she held the red rose, the same one that symbolized love and peril from months past, now a living reminder of her journey. Its petals glowed softly in the early light, vibrant against her skin, embodying both the danger she had faced and the hope she embraced. She turned slowly, her green eyes reflecting a depth that words could never capture, aware that she had crossed a threshold, leaving behind the shadows of fear, betrayal, and helplessness. Her expression was serene peace woven into the lines of her face, marking the end of her tumultuous voyage. The city's hum below felt like a distant lullaby, a lullaby for the woman who had reclaimed her strength. Her fingertips brushed lightly against the petals. In that delicate gesture, she welcomed the silence, the quiet of a soul finally at peace. The rooftop, with its panoramic view of sleepless, roaring streets, became her sanctuary of resolution, a place where love and danger once intertwined but now dissolved into acceptance. Above, the sky unfurled into a canvas painted with dawn's first whispers, a tableau of eternity and renewal. The camera lingered, capturing her silhouette against the newborn sky, a symbol of victory over darkness, a testament to love's enduring power to heal and transform. In the stillness, she lifted the rose one last time, eyes closing in gratitude and resolve. A gentle wind caressed her skin, carrying whispers of her past and promises for her future. The scene faded softly into silence, the culmination of her journey, A moment suspended in time where love, loss, and hope concluded in quiet, poetic harmony. Would you embrace love if it came with a secret past? Share your thoughts.